Danger Zone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. It's another week of live radio right here on the Kev Baker Show, coming to you live from a not-so-sunny Scotland. And I'm joined tonight by my good friend, my co-host, who got some very good news over the weekend, Mr. Johnny Whistles. Johnny, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Kev. Thanks very much. And yeah, I got some good news today that actually start work at CERN on the 17th or the 24th of July. So looking forward to that, Kev.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I must admit, though, John, I did have a giggle, right? Because aside from Anthony Patch, who is always getting harassed by intelligence services, right? You, on the other hand, you just got gremlins in your machine, don't you? And the thing is, you've gone and got yourself a job doing what, John?
I'm the tech support, Kev, for everybody's computer problems.
Oh, there's some universal irony in there. There really is. But John, on behalf of all the audience out there, because I know you've got so many people care so dearly about you, I want to congratulate you, man. And it's great to start the week off with some positive news for a change. Johnny Whistle's back in the land of the working. But don't worry out there, because I've already asked him, is this going to affect his KBS time? And John, we're okay, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll be finished well before any of the show starts, so it'll be fine.
Thankfully, man. I couldn't handle people outside my door wanting to lynch me, wanting you back on the show. I just can't deal with that, Johnny, right? So then tonight, it's not just myself and John, because every week now we're going to be joined on a Monday and a Wednesday by Mr. Anthony Patch. Now, Anthony Patch has got his own show on a Friday as well, where I go on there. I'm the co-host. I actually zip up. Well, try to zip up. And Tony's the main man on there. Now, for anyone who is a new listener, Anthony Patch is an author, a researcher, and a public speaker. He covers topics including CERN, quantum computing, science, Christianity, and a whole lot more. He's the author of a number of books: 2048, Diamonds in the Rough, Covert Catastrophe, Revising Reality, and his latest project is something called Entangled. Now, I encourage you all to check out Entangled, because this is something completely new. It's a compilation of so many great minds out there right now, and they're writing articles, making music, making art, and it's all collaborated in a once-a-month form in an e-magazine called Entangled. You can find that over at anthonypatch.com. You can find all of his other work on there, and tonight you can find him on here with us. Tony, how you doing, man?
Very good, my friend. I'm so happy for you, Johnny. What a relief I'm sure that is for you. And it's the height of irony. I agree. Somebody, and I call him God, the creator, because he created everything, including sense of humor. And he has the best sense of humor out there. Congratulations, my friend.
Thanks very much, Tony. Yeah, definitely. You can rest assured that God has got a really funny side.
Absolutely. They say he works in mysterious ways. Joe Joseph told me he had the sense of humour, and I'm telling you, John, I am over the moon for you, man. And it's you I'm coming to first tonight, because we're going to make you the star of the kind of first half of the show here tonight, Johnny. And it was a story we covered when I was Alter Kev, that other Kev that had inhabited my body last week when I was absolutely ill, right? And it was
Did you say altar boy?
Tony, that's for another show altogether, man. I'm not ready for that show yet. But...
All right. Well, I have the perfect guest for that as a surprise, but I won't tell you. So go ahead. I'm sorry I butted in.
See, he's getting a professional now. He's just like dropping nuggets out there to whet the audience's appetite. But John, this is 11 dimensions of the brain. Now, I attempted to talk about it last week. We spoke about it before the show. But since then, something's happened to you, and you've had a thought about all this dimensions and consciousness. And what's your new kind of thoughts on this, John? You've got a question for Tony as well at the end of this, don't you?
Yeah, it's just it's really about dreams, Kev, because my partner just the other day there had a dream. She remembers having the dream, but can't remember a thing about it. And I was wondering if this is part of these 11 dimensions that we know that the brain has, where when information passes through, it collapses right away, kind of thing. I'm not really sure how it all works, Kev, but is this the same kind of thing? Sorry, Tony, is this the same kind of thing that your dream is really one of those dimensions, but when you stop dreaming, that whole thing disappears straight away, and that's where it collapses? Is it the same kind of thing, or is it totally different altogether?
No, I think you can be accurate in saying that it not only describe it as an alternate reality, but certainly one of what I consider to be infinite dimensions. I think that we can all agree that the universe, as far as we as a human with human brains that are limited, we can say the universe essentially is infinite, and therefore the number of dimensions are infinite, and therefore we're accessing dimensions through our conscious and subconscious. I think what happens is when you are dreaming in a subconscious state, dream state, you're accessing another dimension of an infinite number. And then when you awaken, if you don't happen to remember it or it's diminished in its memory, it's because our consciousness is overpowering our subconscious. And so we don't have that ready access to that dimension any further through our brain, because our brain is a quantum computer. And we know quantum computers are accessing parallel dimensions, perhaps an infinite number. So that's the mechanism, is your brain's a quantum computer, but it's a matter of what is overpowering, what has the stronger signal strength.
And you know, this art, sorry, on you go, John.
No, I was just going to say to you that Kev was telling that because of your brain is actually doing that at a temperature that a quantum computer just can't do it at. Is that where the breakdown, where that happens? It happens more in the warm side of quantum computing rather than the cold side.
Yeah, the cold side is the superconducting state that maintains the quantum entanglement so that the information can travel through quantum tunneling. But room temperature quantum entanglement is what you're describing. And one of my articles in my issue last month in Entangled that I wrote, I describe what I call warm and wet qubits, and that describes the room temperature or brain temperature quantum entanglement of qubits within our quantum computer brains. So we already have a God-given, God-constructed room temperature quantum entangled computer.
And you know, Tony, this actual article, it throws up a good point. And one of the main things I take from it is more confirmation of the kind of stuff that you've been sharing with us, because it says here that neuroscientists have used a branch of maths in a totally new way to peer into the structure of our brains. What they've discovered is the brain is full of multi-dimensional geometrical structures operating in as many as 11 dimensions. Now, the latest brain model was produced by a team of researchers from the Blue Brain Project, a Swiss research initiative devoted to building a supercomputing-powered reconstruction of the human brain. The team used algebraic topology, a branch of mathematics used to describe the properties of objects and spaces regardless of how they change shape. Now, the reason I bring all that up, and I know we've got a kind of hardcore audience that follow along with the shows, multi-dimensional geometric structures in our brain, Tony.
Well, you know, I burst out laughing because we've talked about this for so long, and now they're finally catching up to us, or at least they're revealing full disclosure that they've been working on this all along, and they're just finally coming out and letting us see the tip of the iceberg, perhaps the tip of the tetrahedron at this point.
They probably think there's these three bozos over on TFR talking about the kind of stuff that we're spending thousands to firewall off from the world.
That's right. You know, it's so funny. I know the company you're talking about in England, and they described this. It's a modular system in which they build room temperature, quantum entangled qubits in these modules that can then be, as they describe it, assembled much like you assemble the blocks of Lego. And they can stack these, they can build them out horizontally, they can fill an entire room with these things. But you know the thing that is so funny? They're still working on the macro scale. They're using quantum entanglement, which is at the nanoscale, but the problem is they're scaling up, and even though it's room temperature, is already a Model T configuration, because I've read all that information. It's a Model T in comparison to what D-Wave's doing.
And of course, D-Wave, Tony, they have been back in the news. Now, well, not directly, I suppose. Well, yeah, directly, because anytime we hear of Jeff Bezos, we should think D-Wave. Now, they've been mentioned in the same breath as Whole Foods. So what's going on there, man?
Well, the punchline is data mining. They bought Whole Foods for their customer buying patterns, the behavior. They're modeling using algorithms of human behavior. So all of these cards that you get points on and you get rebates on are tracking, as you know, our audience knows, tracking all of the buying habits. So they know exactly what you're eating, just like your bank accounts. They know your buying, purchasing patterns in your banking system. They want that data. They bought the company not because it's profitable, not because it's, you know, Whole Foods, which has organics and very few, if any, GMO products in it, because it's the right thing to do, because they want to build up a non-GMO line of foods by infusing money, capital into it from Amazon. No. It's all about binary information, and this goes to deep machine learning. This is more content. Think of content providers that write articles for online blogs and other news services. The internet is nothing more than a massive content provider database for deep machine learning of the AI system. That is exactly what Whole Foods is. Their data on their customers is providing content for further advancement of AI. And Amazon, I'm going to stop here. Amazon, as you know and our audience knows, but I'm going to remind people, Amazon is one of the customers of D-Wave and has a 2000 qubit, the 2000Q D-Wave model, latest model of the D-Wave quantum computer. So their business model at Amazon is, we want to sell the world everything.
And you know, Amazon, people laugh when I say it, but I am convinced that when they started talking about sending out your orders before we even place them, that was them laughing at all of us and telling the people in the know that they really do have a computer that can predict our behavior ahead of time. And it can only do that because of all this deep machine learning, because we're feeding it every minute of every day. And at some points, you know, it does become creepy. And I was reading an article today, and the headline here is, social networks may one day diagnose disease, but at a cost. The world is becoming one big clinical trial. Humanity is generating streams of data from different sources every second. And this information continuously flowing from social media, mobile GPS and Wi-Fi locations, search history, drugstore reward cards, wearable devices, Internet of Things, and much more, can provide insights into a person's health and well-being. It's now entirely conceivable that companies like Facebook or Google, two of the biggest data platforms and predictive engines of our behavior, could tell someone they might have cancer before they even suspect it. Someone complaining about night sweats and weight loss on social media might not know that these can be signs of lymphoma, or that their morning joint stiffness and propensity to sunburn could herald lupus. But it's entirely feasible that bots trolling about on social media platform posts could pick up on these clues. Sharing these insights and predictions could save lives and improve health. But there are good reasons why data platforms aren't doing this today. The question is then, do the risks outweigh the benefits? And this is where we are now. Literally bots out there all over social media, Tony. We think we're just making innocuous posts, but all of it being data mined, being modeled, and who only knows just what predictive properties they have now.
Yeah, and you actually hit on a very key point. And in the development of AI, it is the discussion of the moral, ethical, and legal and philosophical and theological and spiritual aspects of AI. You said risk versus benefit. So let's take that apart, because risk right now is that we as humans have not built in the safety valves to AI development, and AI development already has advanced beyond the point in which we can effectively institute safeguards that will, as Elon Musk has warned us, AI is the biggest threat, the existential threat to the human race. And I agree with him. And, you know, he's offered some solutions like the neural lace and that sort of thing that we've discussed before. But the point is, we already have advanced to the point where AI is teaching itself. We've crossed that line in the sand, that red line. We've already gone past the point of no return. So the risk versus benefit reward is really no longer a valid conversation that we can have. The conversation now, because we're on the other side of that line, is can we effectively control the genie that we just let out of the bottle?
A very, very good question, and one that we should all be asking ourselves, you know, because in that article, I mean, who decides when the benefits outweigh the risks? And, you know, one other article that kind of ties in with this, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Tony and John. It says here that Facebook tried teaching bots the art of negotiation, so the AI learned to lie. Given training data was from real human chatter, this says more about us than anything else. It says, let's be honest, despite last year's burst of hype, chatbots haven't progressed beyond asking and answering simple questions. Still, researchers aren't letting go of their dream of a perfect digital assistant. If bots are to be really helpful, they'll need to be more than a dumb user interface. They will have to engage in more complex chatter, which is hard to do. One area of complex conversation that has received little attention is negotiation. Now, developers are right now crafting bots that try to do specific things, such as helping people book flights or deal with restaurant reservations. But in those jobs, both parties have the same goal: getting someone on a plane or finding them a table. What happens if they don't want the same thing? Well, it turns out chatbots, after being taught to negotiate, will sometimes lie to get what they want. Who said artificial intelligence had to be nice? And that's just one example of how it's already kind of getting out of control, because if it's learned how to lie, then where does this end, Tony?
Well, God will end it. It's his plan. So no fear here. This is all being allowed by him as part of his grand plan. But that kept in mind as a foundation, we need to understand that there are multiple levels of AI applications, from very simplistic to very sophisticated. What I'm describing when I say we've crossed that line, we're over the threshold, is the tip of the spear AI applications. The applications that operate in the sentient world simulation with D-Wave at that very leading edge tip of the spear. And I want to put another plug in for Entangled magazine, because last month we had a great deal of information that is very advanced in AI and quantum computing, and we're going to continue that in Entangled. So if you want to know beyond the news articles, okay, what you even read there, Kev, is old news, because they always try to talk about medical applications and, other lower level applications of AI, which I applaud. Totally want the AI involved in, augmenting, not replacing, but augmenting the diagnosis by physicians and analyzing of MRI images, because they're much better already at detecting abnormalities in an MRI image than the human. That's old news, but they want to present it as, wow, this is the latest news. That's a sub-level of the discussion that you and I and Johnny have been having for a long time about AI. So the tip of the spear information is in the Entangled magazine, because we can provide you greater breakdown and detail than we can do here on the air. But I really want to say, don't lump AI into one basket, because there are those multiple levels and applications. The ones that are out of our control, that have escaped the bottle as the genie, is that tip of the spear, where it is taking in all of the data of the world and deciding independently, because it's self-learning now. That's the threshold.
You see, I think we need a new term, an artificial super intelligence, something like that.
What, you going to call it the ASS?
So that's about right.
Gotcha.
See, he did get me there. What? See, Johnny, help me out here, man. Come on.
See, that was a clever one there, Kev. See,
you see, I want Siri on my phone, Tony. I like my digital assistant.
Why, you didn't get enough help from your wife?
I think that we are really lucky just now, because we know what bots are when they do appear. But it is going to get to that stage where you will think that you're talking to somebody who is really, really intelligent. And in fact, it really is intelligent, because it is going to be D-Wave.
Well, here's a question for you, right, John? 10, 15 years, or you tell me, maybe not that long away. Do you think we're going to be like living alongside human-looking robots at some stage?
Oh, I definitely think that is coming, Kev. These kind of things are going to be in shops first, Kev.
Yeah.
To get everybody, do you know what I mean? The robot security guard. This is all to get us in preparation for what's coming.
I mean, that kind of thing, Tony, that's already huge over in places like Japan. And they're already talking about opening cafes over here where you're going to have robot assistants and things like that. And it seems to be a strange new world that we're moving into slowly but surely.
Have you seen the latest story over the weekend about the little robot infants, the newborns that cry and they breathe and they, look and touch like a newborn baby? And that's not all that advanced. But the one that's really creepy is from the movie Avatar. And they have these little baby avatar creatures that have this really, very synthetic, rubbery, flexible bodies. They're squishy bodies. And these are robot infants as well. This is where they're giving us the hints. They're showing us, hey, we've already done all this stuff, and we're just going to show you the infant versions. But, in the deep underground laboratories, we have, at varying levels of artificial intelligence, we have all these hybrids already. And the hybrids are waiting for the opening of the doorway to the abyss so that they can be inhabited by the demonic spirits. And that sounds crazy, but wait until you hear after the break how crazy Stephen Hawking is. Okay?
Mr. Hawkins, we actually had to sack him, Tony, for being our spokesman.
You should sack me as well, because I muted up and started talking there. But here we are, Monday night, Anthony Patch talking deep underground military bases, hybrids. After the break, we're going into Stephen Hawkins, no less. And yes, as Johnny said there, we used to let Hawkins kind of do the promos for Freaky Friday, but a group decision has been made No more Hawking. He's been fired as our science ambassador. He's a shill for the dark side. We know it. And after the break, we're going to be firing light beams up his tuchus. So join us in 3 short minutes. And don't forget, tomorrow night, it's just going to be myself and Johnny Whistles. And we are working on something unique, something strange, and something very good. Join us.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the second half already of tonight's Kev Baker Show, and I want to take time to remind each and every one of you out there listening just how important you are to myself, Johnny, and Tony, of course. 740 episodes. We keep coming back night after night, and I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, that if it wasn't for all of you out there, it just wouldn't be worth it. It really wouldn't. We might as well be talking to the desks and monitors in front of us. But you keep coming back. And whether it's on iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, or here at our home on TFR, in the amazing chat room, all the art, all the wishes. It's truly, it is. It's mind-boggling. And I just want to remind you just how important and how special you are to myself and Johnny right here on KBS. Somebody else special to us is tonight's guest, Mr. Anthony Patch. And before we get into Hawkins, we'll give Hawkins Bozo of the Night status, right? But Tony, your show on Friday with Mr. David Heavener. Wow, brother. What an absolutely powerful, information-packed 2 hours. And I can't thank you enough for bringing him onto the show, but your thoughts on that, Tony, because it was really, really powerful.
Yeah, David Heavener is a movie producer, and he's running a campaign right now to raise funds for an independent television production entitled The Last Evangelist. And this is a Christian-based television series regarding and described as the CSI applied to, or CSI of the Book of Revelation. And there's nothing like it on television right now. And I'm really trying to, as well as you and Johnny, we're trying to get the word out to lend him the assistance. He's got a long history in Hollywood and in independent productions. He's got the credibility. He's got the curriculum vitae to be credible. And he needs the support of people that would like to see a different message presented on television, one that is wholesome, but is also describing for us the state of affairs and what is before us prophetically.
No, it really was. It was one of the best shows we've done to date, I think, Tony. And what a genuine, un-Hollywood type guy. And if you haven't heard that show, I urge you to check it out over on Tony's archive page, YouTube, wherever. But it's a very, very important 2 hours of radio. And like Tony says, this is a project that I'm very happy to get behind, because it's not very often that you watch something that is purely based in truth. And talk about a man on a mission from God. So genuine during the breaks as well. Just a genuine, nice guy. Something really resonated within me listening to him. And another big show coming up this Friday, Tony.
Yes, we have Dane Wigington, a leader in the Geoengineering Watch organization.
What's his name again? Just say that one more time.
Dane Wigington.
Oh, yeah.
And he's very well recognized in the geoengineering circles, and it follows on the heels of our great discussion we had just the show prior to Friday's show with Alana Freeland, who also is part and parcel as a major researcher in the chemtrails geoengineering genre and area of activist. Dane Wigington has been around a long time, and he is very credible. He is a former engineer from Bechtel Corporation, but don't hold that against him. I mean, he is no longer with Bechtel. We all have had, those moments that we have worked for employers that we didn't really hold to the same philosophies with. So don't hold that against him. But Dane Wigington is acknowledged around the world as the leader in this whole activist arena against aerosolized spraying, the terraforming of this planet, and how it literally today is killing millions of people.
And that was the way I started on YouTube, chemtrail videos. And I think chemtrails is one of the best introductory kind of topics to pick if you're speaking to somebody that maybe takes their news from the mainstream, stuff like that. Somebody that's not into the stuff we're into, then chemtrails, it's a nice kind of topic to start on. You're not going to watch their eyes glaze over too quickly with that one. And we can always look up and show them examples in the sky, because I don't know where you live, but every damn day over here, every day, chemtrails. It's something that we all share. And of course, the air we breathe is something we all share as well. Now, I'm not going to be talking about chemtrails in a moment, but I can do you light beams. And I'm going to be firing them up, Stephen Hawking, and we'll not go there, right? But here we go. Because the headline says here, this is how Stephen Hawking wants to explore space. Really should have some dramatic music for this, shouldn't we? Because it says here...
Johnny can bring that in. Johnny can bring in the dramatic music.
The dramatic music.
Bingo.
Go into space. Stephen Hawking doesn't believe we should build an enterprising starship or beam over there via the holodeck, if that's even humanly possible. He wants to send us blazing into the future on a beam of light. Hawking recently spoke at the Starmus Science Festival in Norway, where he stressed that humans need to look beyond Earth if we have any intention to avoid impending disaster from issues such as overpopulation, global warming, and the zombie apocalypse, it says, was not mentioned. He also believes we could someday achieve being an interplanetary species by using Einstein's theory of relativity to our advantage and riding beams of light into the great unknown. And to cut a very boring, long story short, Hawking's solution is riding a beam of light at warp speed, taking any spacecraft in existence to Proxima b, even at full blast, would mean buckling in for 3 million years. Because a starship rattling with skeletons is not exactly what we want to send there, we need to think beyond jet fuel. Enter speed of light travel. It would require matter to antimatter annihilation technology that would release immense bursts of energy from particles of matter colliding with antimatter. While he admits this technology hasn't even been dreamed into being yet, Hawking imagines riding a super beam supplemented with nuclear fusion that would propel our new spaceship towards 1/10 of the speed of light. That's a little over 18,628 miles per second. So, Tony, are you ready to travel on a beam of light with Stephen Hawking leading the way?
Only if he goes first.
Like I say, I've got the perfect place to fire them. What do you make of this whole topic?
Well, first off, people will say that we, the three of us, are crazy. We go out and we conjecture, we hypothesize, we even base theories upon hard science, and people call us crazy. Now, just because a guy's got a PhD and he is an acknowledged leading cosmologist and mathematician, but just because of that, he can make these preposterous statements, and he can say that we can develop the technology to do this, and nobody blinks at it. Nobody questions it. They just go along with it because of his position, his notoriety. And there are many of these guys now that are on television that are physicists and scientists and whatever, and they can say the most whacked out things that maybe the technology in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years could be, or maybe it's already been developed and we don't know in these hidden projects. But they can say it and not get attacked. But we get attacked all the time. And I'll tell you what, we read the same articles We have the same information that is in the public arena, in the scientific circles. We don't have the dark ops, the black ops, the hidden operations information, but we can put two and two together too. So why attack us? We're no threats. We just don't have any alphabets after our names.
It's a really great point you bring up. And, they would call us fake news and ridicule us if one of us came up with an article like this. But because he is a scholar, air quotes there, letters after his name, he gets away with it. Wouldn't it be great being a hypothetical, theoretical physicist? What a job that must be. You can just make up absolutely anything with nothing to back it up. And I question, Tony, I really do question if that computer hijacked Stephen Hawking's a long, long time ago.
Well, I think he has as well. I agree. I think he's captured and he's a mouthpiece and he's just trying to survive at this point. But let's talk about the science of how that might happen. Because if we say that we don't have letters after our names, but we're just as good at theorizing as any theoretical physicist, because I believe we are. The three of us are doctors. We already declared ourselves as doctors, right?
Exactly. Of course.
So as doctors, the three of us, we are going to talk about the theory of light travel as described by the eminent Dr. Stephen Hawking. And the short answer of that is photons. You can already transmit binary information, zeros and ones, on photons. You can send that information through the fiber optic systems that provide us our television signals now and our radio signals like TFR. That's no big deal. Let's take away the glass fibers. Take away the fiber optics. You still have the photons that are embedded with zeros and ones, digital information. Those zeros and ones can be the digitized DNA, the sequenced DNA, with the sequencers and the reconstructing of DNA at a distance after it's been transmitted. We've been through all that. People can listen to it in the archives. So we're talking the same thing that Hawking's is. This is digitized DNA carried by photons that are traveling as waves of light through the cosmos to Alpha Centauri. Totally capable of doing that with the present day technology. So it isn't 10 to 50 years out in the future. What he's actually saying is we've had this for many years. And we've derived this from ancient technology. And I'm going to take just a slight tangent here. Do you know that the technology is of Satan, and that Satan was cut off by God, and he was cut off from the access of the knowledge of God, and all he has to work with is old Model T information. And so he gets close to people like you and me and Johnny who have access to the Holy Spirit, because Satan does not. He doesn't have access to the information that is conveyed to us through the Holy Spirit. And so they snuggle up to our computers with their little monitoring machines, and they listen into what Kevin, Johnny, and Tony are talking about that's given to them by God that Satan has no access to. So what do you think about that?
Tony Patch, on a Monday, you are on fire, man. You really are. But that science from Tony will get ridiculed. Why? Because he's not got PhD after his name, and yet you probably heard a lot more real, feasible science in there than you heard from Hawkins and his hypothetical antimatter. And everyone out there, I love space, absolutely love it. And I imagine if we do have craft out there, or there's craft of any kind, they're probably utilizing the plasma that's already out there in space anyway. There's a direct energy source if you can harness that somehow, or some kind of cold fusion drive, something like that, Tony.
That's the mechanism that's been proven by my friend Monty Childs with the Sapphire Project, where they've created a model of the sun, and they've proven that the sun operates by by magnetically attracting the plasma that exists, the ionized gas, the plasma, the fourth state of matter that surrounds everything in the cosmos. and is therefore an inexhaustible supply of energy for the sun and for the stars. That's how the sun, Monty has proven in the Sapphire Project. You can go online and look at it. Proven. The real model of the sun, the real model of the universe, is the electric model of the universe. Therefore, if the sun can ingest plasma and operate as it does, so can a spacecraft ingest plasma and use it as a fuel for propulsion.
And that's why you get one of these strange kind of anomalies on the sun, isn't it? Where it's hotter at the surface than it actually is at the core. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Again, that is one of the amazing things that Monty Childs came up with Sapphire, is that they proved that the core of the sun is actually very cold.
And when you just think about that, think how in the face of everything you've ever been told that is. And again, that's because they're so determined to hang on to that Einsteinian kind of model of the universe, aren't they? Yeah, and we're seeing that the glimpses of the stolen technology from Tesla, which is the electric model versus Einstein's gravity model, the hint of that application, which is just one example, is the awake linear accelerator, the plasma wake field accelerator. They know the true model is all about electricity and plasma, but you'll never hear them acknowledge that in public. But then they build a machine that's got a chamber 10 meters long full of plasma. And we had a conversation with L.A. Marzulli while you were away just last week, Tony. And speaking to him, I mean, I've had to kind of adapt my language that I use, because I used to say I was a big, firm believer in the ancient alien kind of stuff, right? But that's not really the right terminology to be using, I don't think, because the more you look at it, it is more this demonic type of thing that was going on back then. I think you would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and he even defines alien as anything that is not of this world. And so it isn't necessarily alien little green men, as he will say. It's anything alien of this world. And further defining it, LA says that these are demonic entities, and therefore they are alien because they are demonic.
Now, talking demonic entities, right, I need to bring you back to something we addressed just briefly in the first half of the show, and I want to kind of pick your brain more on this, because you were talking about the opening of the abyss and hinting at the hybrids that may exist in these underground bases. Now, how does that all tie together, Tony? The opening of the portal and these secret programs where we do have probably centaur-type things in labs underground. How does that all tie together for the listeners out there?
Yeah, a really good friend of mine asked me this very similar question this morning, and that was, what is it going to look like when the abyss is open? What do you think is going to come out? What are people going to see? Are they going to see physical things, or is it just going to be spiritual? Well, it's a combination. It's spiritual entities that come out. And to specifically go to your question about hybrids, the hybrids are vessels for these spiritual entities, these demonic entities that will then inhabit these bodies that have been created in laboratories.
These sounds like the things that Clyde Lewis, our mutual friend, talks about often, called homunculus. And they're just basically, like you say, it's a vessel, just an empty vessel waiting to house some kind of spirit.
Well, there's precedent for this. If you go back to our discussions about Edward Kelly and John Dee, and back in the late 1500s, and they actually were involved in the study of the golem, GOLEM, the golem. If people look that up, because we're running out of time here, but the golem essentially were constructed of clay that had nanoparticles, what normally people would consider to be monoatomic gold, and this clay actually is the result of the impact of a large meteor that delivered this monoatomic gold to Earth. And they found the deposits all over the world of this, but in one specific area, they actually reconstructed from this clay containing monoatomic gold the golem themselves, that were then imparted through rituals, through communicating, necromancy, communicating with the dead, the fallen angels. Dee and Kelly received the information from the fallen angels as to how to open portals, doorways that would allow demonic spirits to come through and indwell the golem. And then the golem were alive. They were these hybrids that were now, for all intents and purposes, living life forms. That is the ancient technology that goes back into Egypt, goes way, way back to the time of Adam. But we're talking about relatively recent, in the late 1500s, and now we're talking about it being applied to modern technology. There's nothing new under the sun.
I absolutely love nights like this. Tony, this has been a great idea, you coming on a couple of times a week, because we can take time like this where we can sit like that and we can pick this great man's brain, because he just kind of tied it all together there. And I was shamelessly trying to get him to do that, because I know we get new listeners coming in here along the way. And when I used to be first waking up, if I was to hear something like that, like Tony just laid out right there, I'd be wanting to know more. And that's exactly where I want to leave you after every show, because it's up to you then to go and run out there, Google some of the stuff Tony's talking about, and you'll realize that it might sound so out there the first time you hear it, but it's so closer to the truth, it will make your skin crawl. Johnny Whistles, bring you in here, man. I'm loving nights like this, right? This has been great, dude.
Oh, this has been fantastic, Kev. As you say, to get Tony on and just basically, I mean, that was a lot of information to try and cram in an hour, but it's better that to get Tony on more often, because the subjects are fantastic, Kev.
And you know, there's so many topics we cover, but right now I think all the stuff we cover with you, Tony, it's so prescient and it's in all of our faces and it affects all of us. And I think this is really the best way of getting so much information out there.
Well, it's my pleasure to join you and Johnny on Monday and Wednesdays, and I appreciate the platform. And a lot more information available in our magazine that we're all contributing to, and it's an open platform called Entangled Magazine, and I open it up to virtually anybody with the premise that, subject to approval of the material being appropriate, but it's everybody's platform, and I want people to email me and talk about it and contribute. Now, before we go, I really would like to ask people for their prayers for our great friends to the show, Robbie and Sarah. Cheryl, I'm sorry, I was reading the chat room. Robbie and Cheryl Spencer. I won't go into detail. I just want to say, please pray for the protection, the covering, and the provision, the providing for Robbie and Cheryl. These are great friends of the show. And I'm sorry, please pray for them.
Absolutely. And, it's quite scary, because I was going to say to Tony before the show, it's not something we do on here often, asking people to pray for others out there, but two people who have become huge parts of the whole project that we're all working on here, Robbie and Cheryl. And I echo exactly what Tony said there. And you've got a big family right here at TFR, Tony, Robbie and Cheryl out there. We're all one big, giant family. So definitely prayers, thoughts, love, whatever. Now, Tony, we have got a couple of minutes left. So what thoughts or ideas would you like to leave our amazing audience with?
Well, we're going to, on Wednesday, I think, depending on what happens between now and then, because we're at the tip of the spear, you and me and Johnny, so there's always breaking information that we come across. And I thank everybody who continues to email me with so many leading edge articles. You guys are really on top of it. We've got a great contributing audience here. It's a two-way, three-way, all the way, around circular form of communication here. So what I want to say is Wednesday, I think we're going to dig in deeper into the subject of light. We gave you a taste of light and protons and transmitting, digitized DNA. But what I'm going to say to you right now is that there's a direct correlation between light and AI. So that's where I want to go on Wednesday.
You know, the good book, it says, let there be light. That should be the biggest indication of all, that light is so much more important and there's so much to it than we ever appreciate. I can't wait to get into that. Johnny.
Well, here's another real quick. Think about colors, okay? And you guys just think about colors. We're going to change the paradigm. We're going to change the paradigm on Wednesday, I guarantee you. Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Kev, as if my brain isn't fried enough. We've got Wednesday as well.
Johnny, just think you'll be a boffin. We're going to put you through a cramming course of being boffin. You'll have your doctor by the end of the month.
Nah, yeah. Well, that'll do me, Kev. So it'll come in handy for the job.
And a big, massive congratulations to Johnny. But when Anthony Patch is talking light, talking colours, I'm thinking frequency. But to find out all the truth, you'll need to join us on Wednesday night. Wednesday night, right here.
Yep.
The Kev Baker Show. I was getting confused there because that made it sound like we're not on tomorrow night. But me and Whistles will be here. And like I was teasing you before the break, we're working on something totally different. You won't have heard of this anywhere else before. This is going to be off the charts. Join us.
I can't wait. I can't wait to find out what you're talking about.
Tony, this is woo on another level, and it's our original woo. This is going to be off the charts. Join us tomorrow night, and we will reveal all. We love each and every one of you out there, and wherever you are, make it TFR.
And didn't touch that dial of these 11 dimensions that we know that the brain has, where when information passes through, it collapses right away, kind of thing. I'm not really sure how it all works, Kev, but is this the same kind of thing? Sorry, Tony, is this the same kind of thing that your dream is really one of those dimensions? But when you stop dreaming, that whole thing disappears straight away, and that's where it collapses. Is it the same kind of thing, or is it totally different altogether?
No, I think you can be accurate in saying that it not only describe it as an alternate reality, but certainly one of what I consider to be infinite dimensions. I think that we can all agree that the universe, as far as we as a human with human brains that are limited, we can say the universe essentially is infinite, and therefore the number of dimensions are infinite, and therefore we're accessing dimensions through our conscious and subconscious. I think what happens is when you are dreaming in a subconscious state, dream state, you're accessing another dimension.
More. He's the author of a number of books: 2048, Diamonds in the Rough, Covert Catastrophe, Revising Reality, and his latest project is something called Entangled. Now, I encourage you all to check out Entangled because this is something completely new. It's a compilation of so many great minds out there right now, and they're writing articles, making music, making art, and it's all collaborated in a once-a-month form in an e-magazine called Entangled. You can find that over at anthonypatch.com. You can find all of his other work on there, and tonight you can find him on here with us. Tony, how you doing, man?
Very good, my friend. I'm so happy for you, Johnny. What a relief I'm sure that is for you, and it's the height of irony. I agree. Somebody, and I call him God, the creator, because he created everything, including sense of humor, and he has the best sense of humor out there. Congratulations, my friend.
Thanks very much, Tony. Yeah, definitely. You can rest assured that God has got a really funny side.
Absolutely. They say he works in mysterious ways. Joe Joseph told me he had the sense of humour, and I'm telling you, John, I am over the moon for you, man. And it's you I'm coming to first tonight, because we're going to make you the star of the kind of first half of the show here tonight, Johnny. And it was a story we covered when I was Alter Kev, that other Kev that had inhabited my body last week when I was absolutely ill, right? And it was
Did you say altar boy?
Tony, that's for another show altogether, man. I'm not ready for that show yet.
All right. Well, I have the perfect guest for that as a surprise, but I won't tell you. So go ahead. I'm sorry I butted in.
See, he's getting a professional now. He's just like dropping nuggets out there to whet the audience's appetite. But John, this is 11 dimensions of the brain. Now, I attempted to talk about it last week. We spoke about it before the show. But since then, something's happened to you, and you've had a thought about all this dimensions and consciousness. And what's your new kind of thoughts on this, John? You've got a question for Tony as well at the end of this, don't you?
Yeah, it's really about dreams, Kev, because my partner just the other day there had a dream. She remembers having the dream, but can't remember a thing about it. And I was wondering if this is part of his computer problems.
Oh, there's some universal irony in there. There really is. But John, on behalf of all the audience out there, because I know you've got so many people care so dearly about you, I want to congratulate you, man. And it's great to start the week off with some positive news for a change. Johnny Whistle's back in the land of the working. But don't worry out there, because I've already asked him, is this going to affect his KBS time? And John, we're okay, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll be finished well before any of the show starts, so it'll be fine.
Thankfully, man. I couldn't handle people outside my door wanting to lynch me, wanting you back on the show. I just can't deal with that, Johnny, right? So then tonight, it's not just myself and John, because every week now we're going to be joined on a Monday and a Wednesday by Mr. Anthony Patch. Now, Anthony Patch has got his own show on a Friday as well, where I go on there. I'm the co-host. I actually zip up. Well, try to zip up. And Tony's the main man on there. Now, for anyone who is a new listener, Anthony Patch is an author, a researcher, and a public speaker. He covers topics including CERN, quantum computing, science, Christianity, and a whole lot.
This is the Camp Baker Zone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. It's another week of live radio right here on the Kev Baker Show, coming to you live from our not-so-sunny Scotland. And I'm joined tonight by my good friend, my co-host, who got some very good news over the weekend, Mr. Johnny Whistles. Johnny, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Kev. Thanks very much. And yeah, I got some good news today that actually start work at CERN on the 17th or the 24th of July. So looking forward to that, Kev.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I must admit, though, John, I did have a giggle, right? Because aside from Anthony Patch, who is always getting harassed by intelligence services, right? You, on the other hand, you just got gremlins in your machine, don't you? And the thing is, you've gone and got yourself a job doing what, John?
I'm the tech support, Kev, for everybody.